Good Wednesday morning, my friends. It is November 5th at 7:29 in the morning. My name is Melissa from Melissa's Struggling Walk with Jesus. I am here to share the Word of God with you. I am using the Amplified Holy Bible and the Navigator's Bible reading plan. And today I am sharing 1 Samuel chapter 1 and 2. So for the first book of Samuel, the title goes into Elkanah and his wives. And it says, "There was a certain man of Ramathaim Zophim, of the hill country of Ephraim, named Elkanah, the son of Jeroham, the son of Elihu, the son of Tohu, the son of Zuph, an Ephraimite." In verse 1, where it says hill country, other Bible literature says mountains of. Also in verse 1, where it says Ephraimite, it is sometimes claimed that Samuel was the tribe of Ephraim rather than the tribe of Levi, and so was not eligible to serve as a priest. He was an Ephraimite only in the sense that his family lived in the tribal area of Ephraim. His genealogy is given in 1 Chronicles chapter 6, verses 22 through 28, and at least two other men in the passage are named Elkanah. Samuel's father, Elkanah, is the man mentioned in 1 Chronicles chapter 6, verse 27. And the men mentioned in 1 Chronicles chapter 6, verses 23, 24, and 26 are several generations removed from Samuel. All right, verse 2. He had two wives, one named Hannah and the other named Peninnah. Peninnah had children, but Hannah had none. Verse 3. This man went up from his city each year to worship and sacrifice to the Lord of hosts at Shiloh. Hophni and Phinehas, the two sons of Eli, were priests to the Lord there. In verse 3, where it says each year. Other Bible literature uses from days to days. All right, verse 4. When the day came that Elkanah sacrificed, he would give portions of the sacrificial meat to Peninnah, his wife, and all her sons and daughters. But to Hannah he would give a double portion, because he loved Hannah. But the Lord had given her no children. In verse 5, where it says given her, other Bible literature says closed her womb. Verse 6. Hannah's rival provoked her bitterly to irritate and embarrass her because the Lord had left her childless. In verse 6, where it says left her, other Bible literature says closed her wombs. Verse 7. So it happened year after year, whenever she went up to the house of the Lord, Peninnah provoked her, so that she wept and would not eat. Then Elkanah her husband said to her, Hannah, why do you cry and why do you not eat? Why are you so sad and discontent? Am I not better to you than 10 sons? So Hannah got up after eating and drinking at Shiloh. Now Eli the priest was sitting on his seat beside the doorpost of the temple, tabernacle of the Lord. Verse 10. Hannah was greatly distressed, and she prayed to the Lord and wept in anguish. In verse 10, where it says greatly, other Bible literature says bitter of soul. Verse 11. She made a vow saying, O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction, suffering of your maidservant, and remember, and not forget your maidservant, but will give your maidservant a son, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life. A razor shall never touch his head. Where it says razor in verse 11. Other Bible literature says shearing knife. This was a requirement of a Nazirite vow which would apply to Samuel all of his life. Check out Numbers chapter 6, verse 2. All right, verse 12. Now it happened as she continued praying before the Lord that Eli was watching her mouth. Hannah was speaking in her heart and mind, and only her lips were moving, and her voice was not heard. So Eli thought she was drunk. In verse 13, where it says thought. This implies that the custom at that time was to pray aloud, and the outcome shows that God hears prayer, whether it is spoken or silent. Verse 14. Eli said to her, "How long will you make yourself drunk? Get rid of your wine." But Hannah answered, "No, my lord, I am a woman with a despairing spirit. I have not been drinking wine or any intoxicating drink, but I have poured out my soul before the Lord." Check out Genesis chapter 19, verse 34. Verse 16. Do not regard your maidservant as a wicked and worthless woman, for I have spoken until now out of my great concern and bitter provocation. Then Eli answered and said, "Go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant your petition that you have asked of him." Hannah said, "Let your maidservant find grace and favor in your sight." So the woman went on her way and ate, and her face was no longer sad. All right, so 1 Samuel chapter 1, starting with verse 19. This is where Samuel is born to Hannah. So the family got up early the next morning, worshipped before the Lord, and returned to their home in Ramah. Elkanah knew Hannah his wife, and the Lord remembered her prayer. It came about in due time, after Hannah had conceived, that she gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, saying, "Because I have asked for him from the Lord." In this verse where it says Samuel. So the name possibly means, the name, for example, Yahweh, Lord, is God, or his name is God. But the etymology is uncertain. All right, verse 21. Then the man Elkanah and all his household went up to offer to the Lord the yearly sacrifice and pay his vow. In verse 21, where it says yearly. Other Bible literature says sacrifice a days. Verse 22. But Hannah did not go up, for she said to her husband, "I will not go up until the child is weaned, and then I will bring him, so that he may appear before the Lord and remain there as long as he lives." In verse 22, where it says weaned. At this time, children were nursed until about age 3. But it may be fair to say that Hannah also wanted to keep the boy as long as she reasonably could, giving up her only child, even for the best of purposes, must have been terribly difficult. All right, verse 22. Verse 23. Elkanah, her husband, said to her, "Do what seems best to you. Wait until you have weaned him. Only may the Lord establish and confirm his word." So the woman remained behind and nursed her son until she weaned him. Verse 24. Now when she had weaned him, she took him up with her, along with a 3-year-old bull, an ephah of flour, and a leather bottle of wine to pour over the burnt offering for a sweet fragrance. And she brought Samuel to the Lord's house in Shiloh, although the child was young. In verse 24, where it says leather. These containers were made from almost the entire skin of an animal and were used for holding wine. All right, verse 25. Then they slaughtered the bull and brought the child to Eli. Hannah said, "O my Lord, as surely as your soul lives, my Lord, I am the woman who stood beside you here praying to the Lord. For this child I prayed, and the Lord has granted me my request which I asked of him. Therefore I have also dedicated him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he is dedicated to the Lord." And they worship the Lord there. All right, 1 Samuel chapter 2, the title goes into Hannah's Song of Thanksgiving. Hannah prayed and said, "My heart rejoices and triumphs in the Lord. My horn strength is lifted up in the Lord. My mouth is opened wide to speak boldly against my enemies, because I rejoice in your salvation. There is no one holy like the Lord. There is no one besides you. There is no rock like our God. Do not go on boasting so very proudly. Do not let arrogance come out of your mouth. For the Lord is a God of knowledge, and by him actions are weighed and examined. The bows of the mighty are broken, but those who have stumbled equip themselves with strength." In verse 4, where it says broken or filled with terror. All right, verse 5. Those who were full hire themselves out for bread, but those who were hungry cease to hunger. Even the barren woman gives birth to 7, but she who has many children withers away. The Lord puts to death and makes alive. He brings down to Sheol the grave and raises up from the grave. The Lord makes poor and makes rich. He brings low and he lifts up. He raises up the poor from the dust, and he lifts up the needy from the ash heap, to make them sit with nobles and inherit a seat of honor and glory. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and he set out the land on them. He guards the feet of his godly faithful ones, but the wicked ones are silenced and perish in darkness. For a man shall not prevail by might. The adversaries of the Lord will be broken to pieces, and he will thunder against them in the heavens. The Lord will judge the ends of the earth, and he will give strength to his king. In verse 10, where it says king, this would first apply to Saul, whom Samuel would anoint as king of Israel in chapter 10, verse 1, and then to David in chapter 16, verse 13, and other earthly kings. Ultimately, it can be applied to Christ, who will rule over Israel and the world. All right, verse 11. Elkanah and his wife Hannah returned to Ramah to his house, but the child Samuel served the Lord under the guidance of Eli the priest. All right, where it says under in verse 11. Other Bible literature says in the presence of. All right, verse 12. All right, First Samuel chapter 2, starting with verse 12, the title goes into the sin of Eli's sons. So the sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were worthless, dishonorable, unprincipled men, and they did not know nor respect the Lord. In verse 12, where it says worthless, other Bible literature says sons of Belial. All right, verse 13. And the custom of the priests with the sacrifices of the people, when any man was offering a sacrifice, the priest's servant would come while the meat was boiling, with a 3-pronged meat fork in his hand. Then he would thrust it into the pan or kettle or cauldron or pot. Everything that the fork brought up, the priest would take for himself. This is what they did in Shiloh to all the sacrifices of the Israelites who came there. In verse 14, where it says Israelites. In general, sons of Israel or Israelites refers to all the people, males and females, of the various tribes descended from the 12 sons. Check out Genesis chapter 35, verses 23 through 26, of Jacob, which was later renamed Israel by God. In verses concerning things such as warfare or circumcision, the sons of Israel or Israelites usually refers only to the males. Tribes of ancient people were identified by the name of their founding ancestor. Therefore, the same general rule applies when referring to individual tribal groups. For example, the sons of Reuben, Reubenites, and so throughout. All right, so verse 15. Also, before they burned or offered the fat, the priest's servant would come and say to the man who was sacrificing, "Give the priest meat to roast, since he will not accept boiled meat from you, only raw." Verse 16. If the man said to him, "Certainly they are to burn and offer the fat first, and then you may take as much as you want," then the priest's servant would say, "No, You shall give it to me now, or I will take it by force. All right, verse 16, where it says you want. So the law of Moses required all the fat to be burned on the altar as an offering to God. Check out Leviticus chapter 3, verse 16. So the worshiper would be reluctant to agree to the priest's demands. Also in verse 16, okay, that first one goes to in verse 16, the word certainly. This one here goes to you want. Other Bible literature say your soul wants. Verse 17. So the sin of the two young men, Hophni and Phinehas, was very great before the Lord, for the men treated the offering of the Lord disrespectfully. All right, 1 Samuel chapter 2, starting with verse 18. The title goes into the Samuel before the Lord as a boy, and it says, Now Samuel was ministering before the Lord as a child dressed in a linen ephod, a sacred item of priestly clothing. Moreover, his mother would make him a little robe and would bring it up to him each year when she came up with her husband to offer the yearly sacrifice. Then Eli would bless Elkanah and his wife and say, May the Lord give you children by this woman in place of the one she asked for, which was dedicated to the Lord. And then they would return to their own home. And the time came when the Lord visited Hannah, so that she conceived and gave birth to 3 sons and 2 daughters. And the boy Samuel grew before the Lord. All right, so 1 Samuel chapter 2, starting with verse 22, the title goes into Eli rebukes his sons. And it says, Now Eli was very old, and he heard about everything that his sons were doing to all the people of Israel, and how they were lying with the women who served at the entrance to the tent of meeting, the tabernacle. Eli said to them, Why do you do such things, the evil things that I hear from all these people? No, my sons. For the report that I keep hearing from the passerbys among the Lord's people is not good. In verse 25, If one man does wrong and sins against another, God will intercede and arbitrate for him. But if a man does wrong to the Lord, who can intercede for him? But they would not listen to their father, for it was the Lord's will to put them to death. In verse 25, where it says, For it. Sometimes when a person has deliberately and repeatedly violated God's law, God may allow him to be even more determined to continue his sinful ways. Verse 26. But the boy Samuel continued to grow in stature and in favor both with the Lord and with men. And then a man of God, a prophet, came to Eli and said to him, Thus says the Lord, Did I not plainly reveal myself to the house of your father, ancestor, when they were in Egypt in bondage to Pharaoh's house? Verse 28. Moreover, I selected him out of all the tribes of Israel to be my priest, to go up to my altar, to burn incense, to wear an ephod before me. And from then on I gave to the house of your father all the fire offerings of the sons of Israel. In verse 28, where it says, I. So from the tribe of Levi, God designated Aaron and his descendants to serve as priests. Verse 29. Why then do you kick out, despise my sacrifice and my offering, which I commanded in my dwelling place, and honor your sons more than me, by fattening yourselves with the choicest part of every offering of my people Israel? Therefore the Lord God of Israel declares, I did indeed say that your house and that of Aaron your father would walk in priestly service before me forever. But now the Lord declares, Far be it from me. For those who honor me I will honor, and those who despise me will be insignificant and contemptible. Behold, the time is coming when I will cut off your strength and the strength of your father's house, so that there will not be an old man in your home. Verse 32. You will look at the distress in my house, the tabernacle, in spite of all the good which God will do for Israel, and there will never again be an old man in your house. In verse 32, where it says house, other Bible literature says dwelling. Verse 33, yet I will not cut off every man of yours from my altar. Your eyes will fail from weeping, and your soul will grieve, and all those born in your house will die as men in the prime of life. Check out 1 Samuel chapter 22, verses 17 through 20. Verse 34, this will be the sign to which you shall come concerning your two sons, Hophni and Phinehas. On the same day both of them shall die. Check out 1 Samuel chapter 4, verses 17 and 18. Verse 35, but I will raise up for myself a faithful priest who will do according to what is in my heart and in my soul. And I will bring him a permanent and enduring house, and he will walk before my anointed forever. Check out 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 10. All right, in verse 35 where it says faithful, other Bible literature says all the days. In verse 35 where it says forever, other Bible literature says, let me repeat that. In verse 35 where it says faithful, this person is not identified by name, but most scholars consider this prophecy fulfilled by Zadok, a priest during the reign of King David, who became high priest under Solomon. His descendants continued to serve in service to God for many generations. All right, and so in verse 35, where it says forever, other Bible literature says all the days. Verse 36, and it will happen that everyone who is left in your house will come and bow down to him for a piece of silver and a loaf of bread and say, please assign me to one of the priest offices so I may eat a piece of bread.